I'm going to share with you 5 things that I have learned since I bought my first rental property. It's been 2 years. I bought the property back in 2020. It was a great investment. It's been an amazing investment. And I think these 5 things are very important. They're things that I knew some of them before going in, and some of the things that I learned along the way. Now, I'd say this is for a very beginner real estate investor. This is not for a seasoned investor. This is for someone who's looking to get their first rental property, looking to get into the market, doesn't have very much experience. These are some just very basics, but I think they're very important, and I wanted to share them with you. My investment's been extremely profitable. Now, this is for long-term rentals. This is for tenants. This isn't for Airbnb arbitrage or Airbnb rentals. I think that's a different thing. Your numbers are going to be different. This is for a very passive investment. You get good tenants in there, get cash flow. You would just want cash flow going into the bank every month with as little work as possible. This is not investment advice. This is just my opinion, my experience I'm sharing with you for educational, entertainment purposes only. Do your own due diligence when investing. Investing is very risky. You can get burned. But let's get into my first thing that I think is probably the most important thing when investing in when buying an investment property, and that is doing the math. I think for a lot of people, the math seems confusing, or I don't know, you just get in your head too much about it and you don't understand the numbers and what kind of numbers you're going for with investment properties. You want to be getting hopefully more than, say, 5% annual return. So I'll give you a quick example of how to look at your annual return in percentage. Now, you want to look at how much money you've put down, how much actual cash you've put into it, not how much you've borrowed. So you would take, say you're putting down $100,000 and say you're making $1,000 a month in cash flow. Okay, so you take the $1,000 a month in cash flow, you multiply it by 12, so that's for the year. It's going to be 12 months, so say that's $12,000. Then you divide $12,000 by your $100,000, and that will get you 12% return on your investment annually. That would be an amazing investment. There aren't a ton of those out there. It is possible for sure, but I wouldn't say that's necessarily the only deals you're going to be looking for. And when buying an investment property, a long-term investment property, the rent prices can go up. Hopefully they will go up, and that will change your annual return over time. So when I bought this property, my return annually turned out to be about 6.9%. Now, this property was a turnkey. It was pretty ridiculous. It already had tenants in it. It already had cash flow. It was basically put up the money, borrow the money from the lender, get your offer accepted, and close the deal. It wasn't quite that simple, but the numbers were that simple. Go by percentages. Don't just go by, oh, I'm only making a couple $100. If the percentages are right, that's what we're looking at, because that's how we want to think when we're investing. Now, number 2, second thing that I learned is don't be afraid to offer over listing. This goes into the math as well. So I offered almost 10% over listing. It was kind of a crazy time during this was in the end of 2020, and prices were actually going up, but interest rates were extremely low, and the numbers still made sense. Even though I was offering like 8% over listing, I knew that my numbers were still good. My return was, like I said, about 7% out the gate. So I went for it, and I could afford it. That was kind of the maximum of my budget. But I think there's a thing mentally and psychologically when buying, you don't want to overpay. You want to try and get this deal. You want to try and get this steal, this amazing thing. And it's not till now I look 2 years later and the property's gone up 15, 20%. It's just the property value skyrocketed. Rents have gone up. It's been incredible. Then you look back and you go, oh, that was a great deal at the time. But at the time, it didn't necessarily look like a great deal. And that's why the person who was actually in escrow, this is part 2 of my second thing that I learned, is don't be afraid to make an offer while it's in escrow. My property was in escrow already when I made the offer. There was somebody who the seller had accepted an offer, and it was also over listing, and they talked themselves out of it for whatever reason. Maybe they went and found an even better deal, but I think they made a huge mistake. Also, with these listing prices, real estate agents will price it low to get a lot of competition between buyers. So what I was seeing, I was putting offers on multiple different properties, and they would basically end up saying, oh, we have this many offers, come back with your highest and best. So the way I think you need to look at it is not necessarily what is the listing price, how much more are you paying for this? You have to decide what you believe it's worth. And that also goes back to the numbers, right? The numbers don't lie. So, but also thinking, what is this worth? To me, I felt like it was undervalued even at its price. I felt like there was a lot of future potential that this property was going to go up in value. And the interest rates were amazing. The interest rate I got was like 3.3% fixed. Get fixed. Don't get adjustable. Get fixed. That's another thing I'm just going to throw in there. Number 3, this is kind of simple, but I would say when looking at buying an investment property, you're going to see either single family, multifamily, or commercial real estate to invest in. Now, my mentor told me, and from what I've seen, that you're going to get a better value per square foot if you go into multifamily. Commercial is its own thing. I don't really have experience in that. I think it's higher risk than getting into multifamily because the demand is not the same for businesses to be in an office as the demand is for somebody to live in somewhere. So I decided, and based on my mentor's advice as well, that multifamily residential made the most sense because a couple of reasons. One is you're competing against other investors. You're not competing against first-time home buyers. You're not competing against home buyers in general, who a lot of times are willing to pay more for a property because they want to live there. They're not paying just to make money on it. They're not paying for the numbers. They're paying for an emotional attachment to this thing. They might pay $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 over listing price, or which then it changes your competition. Also, in a recession or a market crash, people are going to lose their homes first. Single family homes, they're going to lose first before rentals go. Another thing also with a rental that's multiple units is if you lose one of your tenants, you don't lose all of your income. You don't lose all of your cash flow at one time. Hopefully one of your units covers your mortgage, the other unit's profit. That's kind of a dream scenario. So even if you lose one, you're still breaking even no matter what. You both rent it out and then you're in the money and it's icing on the cake. I bought 2 units. It was a house in the front and an additional unit ADU in the back. So it was kind of a house, but there were 2 units on the property. They were almost subdivided by a fence. They're basically 2 separate units, but they all have their own walls. They don't share walls. So it was on a corner lot. Just made a lot of sense when I looked at it, and it's turned out to be absolutely incredible. Number 4 that I learned, this is a little bit more technical, but this almost ended up killing my deal because actually what happened is in escrow, even though I had offered way over listing, the prices had started to go up and the seller believed that the price had gone up even more than I had offered and tried to back out of the deal. And what ended up happening is at the very end, almost the last couple days, last week of escrow, the underwriter started having issues with the mortgage. Now, even though I was pre-approved for the loan from the mortgage broker, the underwriter is different. So I would say, and it ended up working out in the end, but I would say my experience was that next time I would want to check with the underwriter first and to make sure that the mortgage is actually legit, even though the mortgage broker has approved you. And, I don't know exactly where they get their information from the lender, but there's this last step of the underwriter approving the loan in the very end of the process, and there were some hiccups and it almost botched the whole deal. So if you're going into buying an investment property, make sure make sure the loan is legit and the underwriter has approved it, not only the mortgage broker. All right, number 5, probably the last thing. Maybe I'll throw in another little thing, I don't know. But number 5 would be don't penny pinch. All right, don't penny pinch. And the other little thing I'm throwing in is do your own due diligence. And these kind of go hand in hand. So in my experience, the previous buyer had done a home inspection and they had a whole breakdown. They had photos. It looked amazing, this home inspection. I was thinking, well, do I really want to pay another home inspector to do the exact same thing? And my real estate agent advised to do that. We did it. And it turned out there were other issues with the property that the other home inspector didn't see. So don't try to save an extra $500 or whatever you got to pay your home inspector. Don't penny pinch those little things. Keep your eye on the prize, the big picture. If you're dealing with a couple $100,000, $500,000, close to $1 million property in real estate now, with most markets, they've gone gangbusters. I'm in California, so the markets are really high. I'm in Los Angeles, so you're talking about extremely expensive properties, and this little $1,000 here, $500 there, $700 there is going to be a moot point at the end of the day when you're talking about long-term wealth building, generational wealth, long-term wealth, which is my mindset going into buying properties. Is I'm always thinking long-term and cash flowing and building just kind of an empire of property and assets. And another thing about not penny pinching is the previous buyer who fell out of escrow, they dropped the deal, I think because they wanted like $20,000 in credits because there were some issues, there were some damages. They wanted to try to just like get the price. I think buyers will try to do that. They'll offer more and then they come back and they say, oh, it needs $15,000 worth of work. We want less. And you get in this whole thing, and the seller didn't want to offer a dollar. So we tried to get credits of about $14,000 for some damages and stuff and things that need to be repaired. She came back and said, no, you're going to get absolutely nothing. And I'd already decided at that point that the deal was too good and that it made too much sense and that we were going forward with it and was going to do it. So these little things you get caught up on, a little bit of damage here, little thing, you want a little better price. You don't want to pay over listing. There's all these psychological aspects of these things that create fear and will keep you possibly from making a great deal. When it's things like this, I think are very simple. It's money coming in, money going out. If the money coming in is more than going out, the right percentage, it's a good deal. If it's in a good area, it just should make sense. Don't talk yourself out. There's a lot of times you're looking to buy and you go, oh, it's not quite perfect this and not quite that and not quite this. And what's nice about investment property is you're not living there. It's a financial investment. There shouldn't be very much emotion attached to it. I didn't even walk inside the building before I bought it because there was a lot of competition, and it was really looking at the neighborhood, looking at the location, looking at and the cash flow. And that was basically it. These are 5 things I learned. If you enjoyed this, please hit subscribe. Please hit like. If you have any other questions, leave a comment. I'll definitely answer. If you think I should make another video on more things, there's a lot of other things that I did learn through this experience. I'd be happy to make another one, but I just kind of wanted to make this relatively simple and give you just some quick things that I learned in this process. Hope you enjoyed. Woo!